So first up, a dear friend of mine, such a dear friend that I will help him move at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. My boy, my guy, my friend, my brother, Tyler. Give it up for Tyler.
Thank you. When I was young, my dad went away to jail for about 10 years. He was 18 when I was born. My mom was 18. I remember in between that time writing letters, talking on the phone, sending report cards, and every year telling my teacher that my dad was coming home. That's my daughter. I also remember him not coming home and constantly being disappointed. I would imagine he was like the dads from Boy Meets World, Family Matters, Full House, Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the kind of dads that would sit down with you and try to help you understand things. I would be at my basketball games, seeing dads coach their sons, and long for that. But he never made it to a single game. When I would bring up these feelings of hurt, they weren't addressed, but my granny who raised me would just say, that's his fault, he's missing out. So the feelings didn't get dealt with, and they just got pushed down. This was often. I started to act out at school and also started to steal. I think I started to steal as a way to feel the emptiness I felt, but I also feel like I did it for the thrill. When he did get out around this same time, he was nothing like I imagined him to be. Outside of a couple instances, all I got from him was discipline, his views on women, and rants on how to make money. My uncle, the family drunk, was the only person to tell me the truth about my dad. He loved money. He loved it more than anything. So longing for some kind of connection, I stole money from him. He had a cigar box full of 20s and condoms, and I would take a 20 or two. Of course, he found out, but he never said anything to me. He just left a note in the box to warn me to stop. But you can never have enough of something you don't need, and since I was cut off, I stole from my school. I stole $300, and when it was found at my home, I was questioned and then beaten by my dad to get the answers out of me when I wouldn't say where it came from. It started in the bedroom with the belt, and it ended with the fist in my chest in the middle of the street. It wasn't the first time he had disciplined me this way, but it was the worst. It happened again the next day. The day after that, I was ready with the metal bat to take a life if I had to, because I had had enough. He didn't come the next day, and it became another one of those things we never talked about. I mean, I didn't steal, so it must have worked. After that, I was determined to never back down from anyone. It got me in a lot of trouble in my early years of middle school and high school. I compartmentalized and suppressed so many emotions that I burst with anger without warning. I was like that Katy Perry song, Hot and Cold. I became someone I couldn't recognize. I was very emotionally immature. The people closest to me got the worst of me. Luckily, I found a job and began working anytime I could. It helped me stay out of trouble and also allowed me to work for my money. See, I had fallen for money too. I started to associate how much money I had with my value as a man. So I chased money nonstop until 2018 when I decided to quit my job. I had worked holidays, I left relationships, I worked on my birthday to focus on making more money. I did it for the money, but I also did it for the validation. After facing some needed rejection from a love interest, I realized I hated parts of myself and actively hid those parts. Around this time, I began to better understand that I had a lot of work to do. In 2020, we had our pandemic baby, Amor. Her name means love. I was now a girl dad. I reflected on the man I had become and asked myself if I would ever want my daughter to be with someone like me. The answer was no. Fortunately, right before the pandemic and my daughter was born, I started my first corporate job. It came with benefits and a lot more money than I had before. I had been full-time freelance for 2 years, but that couldn't support a family. So with the new job perks, I started therapy for the first time and focused on my masculinity, childhood trauma, and sexuality. We had a practice where we look back on experiences that impacted us the most and we would take back our narrative. I started to realize the impact my childhood trauma had had on me. I also realized that I had suffered pain in my young life, but I had also caused it. I needed to heal and stop bleeding on the people who had nothing to do with it. Through therapy, I was able to look at how I got to where I am today and decide from here where I wanted to go and who I wanted to take with me. I was able to see myself clearly. I found in safe spaces I was able to be myself around others. I was introduced to my chosen family. If I'm honest, to this day, the people closest to me get the worst of me. I care a lot about how I'm perceived. I can still get hot and I can still be cold. But becoming a father did truly change me. My daughter gets the best of me, and it reminds me that I'm not just my bad parts. See, she made me want to become a better man and the best father I can be. Being a father and thinking of legacy also encouraged me to take my mental health and physical health more seriously. I mean, anything I had I could possibly pass along to my daughter. My thought was and still is, let me get the help I need now so I can be there for her when she needs it. Through all the work in therapy and out of therapy, I better understood how complex I am. I got diagnosed with bipolar 2 and ADHD in the beginning of 2022. For me, I had a sense of relief because for so long I felt there was something wrong with me, when the reality was there was just a part of me that had yet to be appreciated. I started to realize I mirrored the behaviors I saw growing up. Silent treatments, isolation, manipulation, dismissive of feelings. This is how I showed up in all my intimate relationships. Shortly after this, I started to confront my dad's mom, who raised me, about emotional neglect. Unfortunately, the conversation went south fast. It ended with me sending a meme about accountability. I then got a text from my dad saying, "You got an issue with my mama, come talk to me," and that's final. I felt this fist in my chest as I tried to hold back the tears. I became the scared little boy again. It got so bad that any man who reminded me of my dad scared me. I felt I couldn't talk to anyone outside of therapy because I didn't want to talk about someone. I wanted to talk to the source. I wanted to talk to them. But that was met with aggression and hostility. I decided to distance myself from that side of the family and started Taekwondo. I wanted to be ready to fight my dad when the time came. I didn't want to be afraid anymore. I was able to channel my anger and fear through practices and movements. I realized I didn't need to give in to my fear, and I joined a community called the Village Path. I found brotherhood and so much more, leaning into love and learning from fear, hoping that the people closest to me don't get the worst of me. I ran into my dad a couple months ago for the first time in over a year, and his first thing he said to me was, "Are you still mad?" with a smirk. For my response, it's safe to say I was. But I felt I was in control of the expression of the feeling. I was met with conflict, and instead of running away, I faced it. I asked questions that had plagued me for so long and spoke my truth. I asked for accountability while being open to taking accountability for the parts I played. I stood up for myself and my inner child. I felt the most brave I ever have. I got closure. The last thing he said to me was, "I'll slap the fuck out of you." At the end of it all, my dad showed me how to not be a father or a man. I'm thankful for that now. They say suffering ceases to be suffering when it finds meaning. Who knew all that shit happened just so I could finally stand up to another little boy? One thing me and my dad did have in common now was that neither of our father figures showed up for us how we needed them to. I choose to break the cycle and do the work to be the best father I can be and a better man than I've been. Thank you.